Is there any audio? Hello, hello. Any audio? Hello? I don't think there's any audio. Damn and blast. Can anyone hear audio? Hello? Bloody thing. Hello? No, doesn't look like it. I hate YouTube. Oh, someone can hear it. Not very high levels though, is there? Audio levels okay? Oh, I'm all good. Well, some would say not. Right, let's get on with the discussion. Now, DJI have rolled out a new update for the Avata, which basically requires you to plug your smartphone in. Now, there has been I've had a lot of feedback. Some people are saying that you have to have your phone plugged in to fly. Some people have said, no, I can fly without it. So I'm not sure. If you've got an Avata, can you fly your Avata with the new update without having your phone plugged in or not? I'd like to hear some feedback in the chat if I can get it, because as I say, the reports are mixed at the moment, which is kind of confusing. So what do we say? How many people are watching? I've had such a trouble getting the stream up, man, you wouldn't believe it. Every time I get to the point of going live, the thing says there was a problem, and then I get thrown back to the start, which is really, really annoying. So there's probably 1,000,001 different stream links all over the place, but I'm going to start here anyway with what we've got. 36 people. Right, should we wait for some more to arrive? Because I didn't give much advance notice. I'm sorry. A lot of people said they wanted me to go online about this time. So that's why I chose this time. I may do another follow-up stream for those that missed this one. But what is the bottom line? Well, I did warn people that this was coming, and it's not DJI's fault. They have to follow the regulations. The FAA in America said that all drones made after the 16th of September have to be fitted with standard remote ID. And what's that? Well, that is remote ID that broadcasts the position of the drone and of the operator. People have said, but hang on, the remote ID doesn't come in until the 16th of September 2023, so it doesn't affect us. But yes, it does. If you're buying a store-bought drone, then it's going to have standard remote ID fitted. And here's the really cool thing. The FAA said, I'll read from the final remote ID rule under Section 5, tamper resistance. Now, this is because people are saying, well, you can just unplug your phone and still fly, and it gives you a remote ID error. Well, that may not happen as of the 16th of this month, because according to the FAA, a UAS with remote identification must be designed and produced in a way that reduces the ability of a person to tamper with the remote identification functionality. It must be a tamper-resistant design so that it's not possible for people to easily defeat or turn off the remote ID. So if you are able to fly your Avata at the moment with the new firmware update, if it just says remote ID error, that may change on the 16th. That may change. It may decide that, hey, suddenly you're not going to be able to fly without your phone connected, because that would be in breach of the FAA's demand that this is not easily tamper-proof and that the user can't disable the remote ID. So that is a bit of a worry. We may just be seeing the first stage of that. Now, as I say, DJI have had no option but to do this, because that's what the FAA have dictated. So, yeah, we remain to see what will happen in that respect. But it is just this slightly thicker piece of the wedge that I've been warning people about for an awfully long time, and we're going to see more. At the moment, the onus is on DJI. They have to comply. You don't have to comply as a user. You're not risking anything by disabling the remote ID. I didn't see anything in the rule that says you're not allowed to defeat it. It just says it must not be easily defeated. But come the 16th of September 2023, you must have remote ID enabled. And if you don't, you are in breach of the regulation. So yeah, but it's such a mess. What is remote ID for? What purpose does it serve? If we had remote ID 5 years ago, how many lives would have been saved? Well, nobody's died. As of the time of the stream, there's been not one single death attributed to the recreational use of multirotor drones anywhere in the world. So remote ID isn't going to save lives. And the thing that really annoys me is that the FAA allegedly create rules so that it reduces the risk to the to everybody, to the aviation community and everybody. The rules are to reduce risk, they're to manage risk. And what they're doing is exactly the opposite with this rule. With the standard broadcast remote ID, because it broadcasts the position of the pilot, it significantly increases the risk for that pilot, for that drone operator. Karens and would-be muggers can come along. They can assault you, steal your stuff, or even worse. And the FAA's only response is, call the police, call the police. Well, I'm sorry, but they've made a rule that significantly increases risk. How can you justify that? If this was about safety, then they couldn't justify it. But we know it's clearly not about safety, because this actually reduces safety for the pilot of the drone. So this is about something else. And they say security, but again, we haven't seen drones being used. I've seen no properly evidenced instances of drones stealing national secrets or anything like that. So it is all about control, and ultimately we know money. We know it's about money. Anyway, but look at some of the chat now, see what's going on. G'day, Sean. Nice to see you here. John Covey, that's you're here too. Who else we got? Mitchell Roberts. Yes, all the usual crew. The usual crew. Does anyone have any specific questions at this stage? Because this will turn into a mega rant otherwise. Might pay to break it up a bit with some reasoned questions from the audience. What have we got? 73 people at the moment. It's not a lot, but this was a very impromptu stream. And as I say, I may do another stream in another day or so when we've had a chance for the smoke to clear and for people to realize exactly what's going on. A lot of people don't realize. Many people won't have updated their firmware. Some will choose not to. Do you see any valid reason for RID? Well, to be honest, no. And this annoys me. The FAA has been so dishonest about this. I was watching Kevin, what's his name, from the FAA, and originally he was talking about how this was going to save lives because pilots of aircraft would know where there were drones flying. It's not going to happen because remote ID only has a very short range, and pilots don't have any onboard receiving equipment. So it's not electronic conspicuity in the way that ADSB is. It's just a way of identifying who is operating a drone. And if there was a problem, if we saw every day that there was lives or property being lost as a result of recreational drone use, I could understand it. But we don't have a problem. We're solving a problem that doesn't exist, which means the reason for this is not what is being claimed. And I mentioned in my video, this is part of a wedge. And the problem we have with this hobby is nobody is pushing back. Nobody's pushing back. Everyone's saying, don't worry about it. It's all fine. And now I think this Avata situation is going to reach a turning point because people are suddenly realizing, well, this actually really does affect me now. Maybe I should be doing something. I'm hoping that's what will happen. People will turn around and say, well, it's time we push back. But honestly, we've left it so damn late because as far as the regulators are concerned, we're easy stuff. They say jump, we say how high. So they think we're just an easy pushover. And we may have left it too late. We may not have exercised the muscles of our freedoms and rights and may not have protected them quickly enough that we have already lost so much we can't recover, which would be an awful shame. So what else have we got on here? What's your prediction on the Avata drone? Well, people will still buy it, people will still fly it. The problem is this also raises other things. This whole compliance thing is ridiculous because most of the people flying DJI drones in the past were flying with a phone on their transmitter. And so they were using visual line of sight and FPV. But according to most regulators, that was adequate. As long as you were flying mainly by looking at the drone, you didn't need a spotter. The Avata is a different kettle of fish. If you go and fly your Avata FPV, you always need a spotter. Now, hands up anyone who has never flown FPV without a spotter. A lot of people never use a spotter. So they're in violation of the regulations. And that is, when it's just a few freestylers and people in a hobby, that's not a problem. But with the Avata bringing many, many people into FPV, this whole spotter thing is going to become a real issue. And it worries me a little that there could be some incidents caused by people who don't understand what they're doing and the risks, who fly without a spotter and create problems for everybody. That's a real worry. Even though we've got the trust exam, that doesn't do it. What have we got? Sean saying, could mass non-compliance work? This feels like one of the first times there might be enough people against it. I totally agree, Sean. And unfortunately, we've left it so late that mass non-compliance is all we have to go with. If we look back at the 1920s prohibition in America, if we look at cannabis laws around the world, the reasons those things have been changed is because they were not effective. People just ignored them. And a rule or regulation that's ignored is useless. So it's no point in having it. If you do not create regulations and rules that are a balance of rights and responsibilities, people will not comply. And those rules are completely ineffective. So the regulators want rules that are effective. I'm doing a series of videos where I'm going to try and plead with the regulators to engage in a dialogue with us, because we don't have a dialogue with regulators. Regulators create rules, they put them out for submission, people submit, but largely those submissions, they may be acknowledged, but they're not always listened to or acted on. So we basically get whatever we're handed. It's time the hobby said, no, this is not acceptable. If you cannot come up with a good balanced set of regulations that meet our needs as well as your perceived needs for safety, then we will not be following your rules and regulations. Now, the regulators don't have enough enforcement power to arrest everybody that's broken the rules, so they have to back down. Just as they couldn't arrest everybody that was smoking cannabis, they have to back down and say, well, we need to be more reasonable in our regulations. We need to have regulations that are more proportionate to risk. And we have on our side the fact that, as I said, not one single person has ever died as a result of the recreational use of multirotor drones. So we can say the risk has been proven. Over, what is it now, 7 years, more than 7 years, not one person did. Show me one other branch of aviation with that kind of safety record. So why is it that someone can go out and buy a ultralight and fly it under Part 103 without registration, without training, without certification, and without electronic conspicuity? Yet if we build a model of that same ultralight and it weighs over 250 grams, we're going to have all those things. We need to say to them, that's why we're not going to follow your regulations. And of course, there is a risk with that the regulators may make examples of people. So as a community, we have to stand together. And we have to say, if they do that, then we need to support whoever gets hauled up and they try to throw the book at them. We need to stand behind them. Do a GoFundMe to cover the fines, whatever it is. We need to make sure that when people do that, they're not going to be left on their own to carry the burden themselves. And Optimized Drone says, hey, Bruce, hope you're well. Yes, I'm very well at the moment. Thank you very much indeed. Where can you find a competent spotter? Well, Arnie is always available. Arnie's on my, I've got him on fast dial. I just ring him up, turns up. Fantastic. And of course, remember, that's one way you can do this. And the other thing is that if we want to look at risk, the FAA and the CAA, all the regulators only have to go online to see how many people are flying drones without spotters, beyond visual line of sight, all the things that they say are far too dangerous to allow, yet where are the deaths? Where is the property damage? We've got proof that we know what we're doing and we act like a group of responsible adults. There's always going to be bad apples, but the thing is, if people are going to do bad things, they're going to do them regardless of what the regulations say. So having regulations doesn't stop bad people. It just penalizes good people who are already doing a damn good job of flying responsibly. And these things need to be pointed out to the regulators. They won't listen until we take a stand. The AMA's rolled over and taken their 30 pieces of silver, so they get their freers and all these things that they want. But as a community, we need to stand up and say, I'm sorry, we've had enough. You've bullied us too long. You have pushed us too far. We draw a line in the sand here. We're not doing this. But will that happen? Will that happen? What else have we got? I've been ranting too much. Have seen a few fixed wing injuries. Yeah, JMO, we have seen a few fixed wing injuries, and people have even died as a result of radio controlled model aircraft use. But the number of deaths is infinitesimal compared to the number of deaths as a result of manned aviation. Even the fixed wing side is still by far and away the safest branch of aviation that there has ever been. What else have you got? Remember, the regulators aren't in charge. These regulations were demanded by the CDA. Yeah, this is a point. And so this whole claim that it's about safety, no, it's not. For example, the remote ID was pushed through by, I believe, Homeland Defense. Homeland Defense. Now stop and think about that. Why do they want remote ID? What is that going to provide them with? And are drones being used in such a way that they threaten the national security of the USA? I don't believe they are. There may be some few little instances, but it's not the threat that, for example, like my camcorder, you've seen my videos, you've seen how much zoom my camcorder has. I can zoom in and I can see people in aircraft that are, a kilometer away, and they don't even know I'm doing it. Now, if you're going to spy on something or some facility or something, you find yourself a ladder, you stand on top of it with a modern camera with a long lens, you can look right inside where you want to go. And the thing is, nobody there will know you're doing it. If you fly a drone there, they're going to know you're going to do it. But use a camera. But we don't see cameras requiring remote ID and license or registration, that sort of thing. So even the Homeland Defense allegations, they're unfounded. We don't need this kind of thing. What else have we got? Birds have caused more plane incidents than any model. That's absolutely true. But the regulators say, oh, but we can't regulate birds. We can regulate you. Yes, Geordie, there have been a number of fixed-wing deaths, but they are small. They're small in number. More people have died taking selfies than have died flying fixed or as a result of fixed-wing RC model flying. And this is the thing we've got to remember too. We're talking drones. We're talking the DJI Avata as a drone, but this applies to everything. This applies to foamies. It applies to even hand-launched, discus-launched gliders, if they're over 250 grams. All these things are going to have remote ID unless you're flying them in a freer and giving, basically handing your responsibilities over to the AMA. And as I said in my other video, everybody's flying under the AMA safety guidelines now, whether you want to or not. You don't have to be a member, but you have to follow their safety guidelines, or you lose your exception to the rule that says everyone must fly under Part 107, because by default in the USA, you all have to fly under Part 107 unless you have the exception, which is only gained by flying in accordance with the safety guidelines of a CBO. And there's Sean throwing £5 at me. I was waiting, Sean. I was thank you so much. So we have the situation where we've got so many rules and regulations and must-dos and must-knows, because not only now do you have to know all the FAA regulations, but also all the AMA's rules and safety guidelines. If you want to fly legally, you've got to know all those and you've got to follow them. And it's just too much of a burden for an 8-year-old kid who just wants to go and fly the foam model of a Piper Cub he got for Christmas down at the local park. It's lunacy, absolute lunacy. Anyway, I rant on too much. Going to continue, Steve says, going to continue flying safely in the way I always have without remote ID. Exactly. This hobby has been years, decades of demonstrating how safe and responsible they are. Don't penalize the good people because of the perceived actions of a bad few. And those bad few, as I said, they won't follow any rules you put out, so you're not going to change their behavior with regulation. In fact, the regulators should be getting on side with the hobby, because it is members of the hobby who maybe, even from a security and national security point of view, we, the hobby, are the people that the regulators need to have on board, because we will see people doing suspicious things. We can report that. Whereas if you basically shut down the hobby, there's nobody there who knows that's not right. And the others will just do what they want to do. And what have we got? The AMA can pound sand. Yes, or if there's an AMA person in here, they will have you for that. G'day, Cliff. How are you? Thank you for your support, mate. What have we got? And hello, Fly Zone Drone. Rich Billman, the P900 is amazing. It is amazing camera. The cameras today have got such fantastic zoom capabilities. It makes drones look, ridiculous by comparison. Hot air balloon deaths. Yes, there's been many deaths by hot air balloon. And I noticed, just to switch tack a little bit, I noticed that the UK, they put out a new CAP 722, is it? With new guidelines, basically definitions, advisories and things for flying safely over there. If you are in the UK, I think I have it here somewhere. Hold on, just making a mess. Here we go. Oh, sorry about the noise. In the UK, you probably can't fly this more than maybe 10 meters away now, because that would be beyond visual line of sight as defined by the UK CAA. It must be visible and you must be able to orient it. At 10 meters, 30, 40 feet, something like this, it becomes hard to see which way it's going. So that's the line of sight. 10 or 12 meters, line of sight. It's ridiculous. And what else have we got here? I believe the reason for this is more than security, more than safety. It's about the commercialization of the 0 to 400 foot airspace. Obviously it is. And we've got a lot of very, very large, very wealthy corporations, Google, Amazon, all wanting a chunk of that airspace. And we only need to look at the FAA's advisory committees. The composition of those tells it all. We, the hobby, are by far and away the single largest user of the airspace. We always have been. Yet we have no representation, zero representation on all these advisory committees. They're manned by Boeing and Airbus and Amazon and Google, the companies that have a commercial interest in using that airspace. They get all the say. We get no say at all. So we're an inconvenient hindrance to the commercialization of the airspace. So the ultimate goal is that we're going to go network remote ID. We will have to get permission to fly, and when it suits them, that permission will be withdrawn. That's it. Hobby's gone. unless you want to go to an AMA field and fly in the little corner there. And there's not much fun flying, certainly a camera drone, in the corner of a grassy field in the middle of nowhere. And what annoys me most is that I'm looking at the future of this hobby. I've had nearly over 60 years of joy from this hobby. I want my grandkids and their kids to have the same amount of fun, but the way it's going, they won't have that opportunity. If someone lives in an urban area and they want to get into flying the hobby, a kid, they are not going to have anywhere to fly. There are no AMA freers in the parks and school grounds of a large city. They're all out of the way. So kids with planes won't be able to legally fly them. The only option may be sub 250, but that is going to be very short-lived. Thank you, Cliff. You're a great mate. I appreciate that. Yeah, the sub 250, that was arbitrarily chosen, and they used some kind of analysis they'd done with weights dropped from a height and flak and so forth as a figure, because at the time that was proposed, they never thought we'd get the functionality out of a 250-gram package that we're getting today with something like the DJI Minis. And so you'll see that drop down. That 250-gram will come down. It's already come down in Japan. It's 200 grams in Japan. And I expect that as our small drones get more capable, that number will reduce and reduce and reduce until basically they take it away. Here in New Zealand, we don't have a lower cutoff figure. Everything from 0 grams to 14.9 grams is subject to exactly the same set of rules. No exemptions, nothing. That's it. So the CAA in New Zealand tell me this is just as dangerous as a DJI Matrice. Large carbon fiber props and everything. This is exactly as dangerous because the same rules apply to them all. And I can't believe that. Oh, BWX. Thank you, mate. That's much appreciated. So yeah, so I see my role here, apart from making entertaining videos and reviews, is to try and champion for the hobby. And I've had a lot of pushback from a lot of AMA members who say there's no problem with the hobby. The hobby's safe. We're all good. We're happy on a Sunday morning sitting in our grassy fields talking about flying and complaining that it's too windy or too calm or too hot or too cold. That's us. We're happy. But that's no longer the mainstream of the hobby. The hobby has changed so much. We need to make provision for people outside these organizations, kids to get involved. And I hate the way that the AMA the FAA and the AMA keep talking about, STEM, we're all behind STEM and STEAM. But you're locking these people out, locking the kids out. You talk the talk, but you don't walk the walk. They can't fly their plane in the local park, in the way that we could just a few years ago. And then they say it's all about safety, but it's not. Because when I was flying models in parks, they weighed 2 or 3 pounds, control line models with internal combustion engines and large flesh cleaving props. They made a lot of noise, and they were far more dangerous than a small RC foamier these days. But nobody complained. Nobody said, "Oh, it's a major threat to us. It's a big threat to us." It was a healthy, happy outdoor hobby that was encouraged. Now it's vilified, and they're making up all these excuses. It's too dangerous. You can't do that. Anyway, so another little mini rant over there. So where do we go from here? Well, we have to organize ourselves. I don't think, even with the changes to the Avata, I don't know that we have the numbers to do much. And there are too many people just willing to roll over to the pressure. And that makes us an easy target. And without mass non-compliance, those who do choose the path of non-compliance run the risk that they're going to get hammered. They're going to get hammered for no good reason. So my goal from this point on is to start talking directly to regulators through videos and with the backing of the community. And I want to embarrass them into action. I want to bring facts and evidence. I know there's no place for facts and evidence in the drone area, but I'm going to try and bring the facts and evidence and embarrass them by constantly reminding them and the media just how they have over-regulated this hobby, vastly over-regulated it. And I would like to perhaps talk to some of the aviation industries that aren't trying to grab a piece of the 0 to 400 foot airspace and convince them that they need to support our hobby, because it's from our hobby that they get their new engineers and their new designers and the new pilots. And if they don't support us, then there's not going to be young people coming through to fill those roles, despite what AMA and FAA say about their STEAM programs and things. So yeah, and I'd love to hear of any ideas that you guys have got how we can push this further forward. I'm putting a lot of effort and time into it, so I will be very busy, and I'll still be making the regular videos, but I'll be doing a lot of work behind the scenes trying to get that through. And of course, I'm just one guy on the bottom of the earth, and a lot of people dismiss the fact that you're not even in our country. What do you care? The problem is I seem to know more than most people in most countries about the rules that affect them, and that speaks massively to how effective those rules really are. People don't understand the rules, don't know the rules, so how can they comply with them? And I want to see a push for in manned aviation, pilots have a lot of discretion. A lot of the time, the rules allow pilots to make a decision about what's safe and what's not. But they don't give us any decision-making capability. We're treated as being complete imbeciles who can't make those decisions. You've got to follow these rules. They and micromanage us through the rules. All these little things. Really, there are only two rules, as I've said before. Don't endanger other people. Don't endanger other people's property. Those are the only two rules. Everything else becomes advisory. But with the regulations applying to drones, they want to micromanage us, tell us everything we must do, must not do. It doesn't work that way, because that provides loopholes. People can operate within the rules and still do bad things. We need, and I've tried to get this through to regulators, safety is not a rule set. It's a culture. It is when people take personal responsibility for their own safety and the safety of others. That's when you have a safe environment. Throw a rule book at them, and even if they memorize the rules and follow them, unless they're analyzing the situation, looking at what the risks are, and coming up with ways of managing those risks, or saying this is too risky, then bad things will still happen. And we see that in aviation, manned aviation, that still happens. But we need to give the people, the well-behaved community that has been flying these things for decades, needs some acknowledgement. We need to be, they need to acknowledge that we know what we're doing. And it really pees me off when I see a bunch of people in suits behind a desk in a glass tower telling me that they know more about me than how to safely fly my model or my drone, when they've probably never flown a model. And if they've flown a drone, they probably just crashed it in a tree. But they're going to tell me how to do it. I'm sorry, but I'm not having that. Nobody should have that. That is a rule, or it's a recipe for disaster. And we're seeing that disaster now. What else have we got here? I'm talking and I'm not listening. So, interesting. Checkmate says he's more into firearms than RC, but the same problems are in the firearms world too. In fact, actually, in America, I think drones are more regulated than firearms, aren't they? So really, how many people die of firearms-related incidents every year in the USA? How many people die as a result of the recreational use of multirotor drones? Which do you think should be more regulated? And what I was thinking is, what we need to do is turn our drones into guns, and then we could carry them freely and use them wherever we wanted to, because it's constitutionally protected freedom. But maybe someone will produce a gun drone. I don't know. What else have we got here? Drone protests, swarms of drones, no operators. Yeah, the problem with this is that we are also having to deal with the public's perception. If we do bad things, the public will just vilify us even more. We need to do good things, positive things, to get the public on our side. The public are at the mercy of the media. The media loves to beat us up. And so we're on a hiding to nothing there. So I'm working on ways that we can get around that. We need to do more things. I go to the local schools and I fly drones and I show the kids the drones and let them look through the goggles and things. And that's great. It demystifies the technology. They're not afraid of it, and neither are they tell their parents. And so it takes that, they're trying to spy on me thing out of the equation. I think we need to make sure that we make people aware that drones are not a threat to them, and we need to do that through positive engagement with the community. But if you notice, this whole remote ID thing, all the moves that the regulators are making is to get us out of the public eye. They don't want us in the public eye because, hey, we may win over the public, and the public have got lots of votes. So why not relegate us to grassy fields in the middle of nowhere where nobody can see us, and then we're not a threat? Worth thinking about. Yep, Ricky, vote for me. I would never get into politics. I couldn't stand the filth, honestly. How many people we got? 136. Fantastic. And what else have we got here? Pamphlets and letterboxes and things. Yeah, we could do that, I think. And videos also. I want to do some videos promoting the hobby and scripted videos with young people and just showing people what a wholesome thing. In fact, if you look back over the years, some of the AMA videos are pretty good, actually. But back in the 30s, 40s and 50s, I think it was, Plymouth sponsored the American Nationals, Model Aircraft Nationals. A car company sponsored the American Nationals. And the local garage dealerships had meetings of all the model flyers, and it was a fantastic, and it was a family thing. There's pictures of everyone running out and flying models, and mum, dad, and the boy were building models. It was fantastic. What's changed? Nothing's changed except regulations, and that's the worry. What else have we got here? Yep. BWX, you can go and buy a gun and use it with less regulation than a 251 gram model. That is nuts. And again, as I say, it shows nothing to do with safety or security, because a gun poses a bigger threat to security than, a DJI Avata or any other kind of model, to be honest. It's ridiculous. Paul Dainton. Oh, okay. No problem, Paul. No problem, mate. And look how angry people get when they don't agree with your opinion. Imagine if they know your location. They're welcome to come around anytime. Why do you think I built these? I've got to protect myself. But no, people do get angry. People get angry when you challenge their view of the world. They don't want to accept things. They'd rather than fight to protect their freedoms, they'd rather pretend that the challenges don't exist. And that's the problem we've got. Yeah, Karens are going to be a big problem. This whole having your position broadcast to the world when you're flying a drone, it's a worrying thing. We've already seen so many videos on YouTube. In the UK, someone was assaulted with a gun. It was only an air pistol, but still, that's going to ruin your day. And we've seen all sorts of other things around the world where Karens get all excited. I've had my own Karen experiences. We don't need to encourage and facilitate that. That's not going to work. And to that end, something I should mention, there's a wiki online now for making your own remote ID throwy. It's a little electronic circuit board with a coin battery, you can then stick it somewhere and it sends out a bogus or a series of bogus remote ID signals. The other way to get around remote ID is to sabotage it. Okay, we're using an ISM band, which means it's a license-free band, so you can transmit whatever you like on it. So it's only a matter of time before someone develops a phone app that, instead of receiving remote ID signals, broadcasts bogus ones. Just basically fills the airwaves with bogus remote ID signals, so that the whole remote ID system becomes pretty useless. The other thing is that Kevin from FAA said you don't have to worry about being mugged because your remote ID signal only doesn't even travel 2 miles, so people won't know where you are unless they're right up beside you anyway, which again is rubbish, because it's only going to be a very short matter of time before we see drones added to things like Flight Radar 24. Because everybody's got a phone in their pocket. All I've got to do is download an app that listens out for remote ID signals, then sends them to a central server, and you can have a map of the world with drone activity. Every drone that's flying will be on there thanks to the remote ID. So your remote ID stuff's going to go way beyond the range of the actual transmitter on board. It's going to go around the world with a network like that, just as the ADS-B on aircraft, enables us to build up a global map of all the aviation activity. So, yeah, but I think, if there's an app produced like that, everyone should put it on their phone and leave it running. And that'll just, if someone turns up, sees a drone flying, pulls out their own phone, there'll be 40 drones appearing on their screen. Which one is the one that's up there? We don't know, because there's 40 spoof drones. That's perhaps the easiest way to fight the remote ID thing. It's a very practical way, and it's not illegal. And what else have we got? People on Facebook saying it's creepy that we want to, well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the biggest things that people say drones pose a threat to is their privacy. Oh, they might be spying on me. We have stories running in the paper here in New Zealand where, there was a woman and her daughter who were outside by their pool, and a drone hovered overhead for 20 minutes spying on them, and they were outraged. Well, why didn't they go inside? Why didn't they put a robe on or something? But I mean, this is the whole privacy thing. So why should we not have privacy? If they want their privacy, why can't we have our privacy? What have we got? Yes, I'm too honest and truthful to be a politician. I wouldn't qualify, that's for sure. It says, is it true you can use the avatar without your phone connected? Well, the jury's out at the moment. Some people have said they can't. Some people have said they can. But I think come the 16th, that's going to be the crucial date, because as of the 16th, the FAA will be enforcing the remote ID rule. At the moment, they're not enforcing it. So this may be a two-stage process. Some people have said at the moment, if they turn on, try and fly their Avata, it comes up and says, connect your phone. If they don't, it says remote ID error and still allows you to fly. But as of the 16th, the DJI must make it impossible for you or difficult for you to tamper with the remote ID or disable remote ID. So it may be that after the 16th, it will simply say, I'm sorry, you can't fly until your phone's plugged in. We don't know. What else have we got here? Yeah, Paul, that's right. Hit the like button, guys. Is there anyone liked it? Oh, 89 people have liked this stream so far. As I had the usual trouble with the stream. It's terrible. YouTube doesn't like me. I tried to set up the stream, I don't know, probably half a dozen times. And you get to the moment when you push the button and it says, something went wrong. Well, thank you for that. Finally, though, I think I got it going. I don't know. Will O3 be affected? Probably not. Probably not. Because remember, this is certainly not immediately, because this regulation only applies to store-bought, ready-to-fly drones. And if you're building your own with an O3, the remote ID rule doesn't come into effect until next year. So there's no onus on DJI to activate remote ID, even if it was possible on the O3 at this time. But they do have a responsibility to activate it on all drones sold after the 16th of September. So in that respect, they don't have an option. They've got to turn it on for the Avata, but they don't have to turn it on for the air unit, even if it's possible to do so. Remember, that doesn't have a GPS in it as well. So there may not be an easy way to do that. So I wouldn't worry about the air unit or the O3 at the moment. Yeah, Ian's Mads Tech says the O3 is not affected. And I don't think it will be, because it's a component for a drone. It's not actually a drone. And RC Master, what is the game plan? Well, that's what we're here to discuss. What are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? And as I say, my best bet is that we simply create things that will spoof remote ID signals to the extent that it becomes useless. And if it becomes useless, then there is no point in having a rule mandating its use if its use is not available. If all over the place, everywhere you go, there are 40 or 50 remote ID signals when you pull out your app to see who's flying a drone, then it's no longer any use to anybody. So they've got to say at that stage, might as well not mandate it, because it's not serving any purpose. That may be our only hope. Set the app up on your phone, create the little throwies you can throw up in a tree and they'll broadcast remote ID. Or when you're flying, just take a handful of little things or set your phone up to produce all those fake remote ID signals, because your phone could do, probably 30 or 40 different remote ID signals. So you could effectively, before you fly, set your phone up to broadcast all those remote ID signals. And if someone comes along with the app, they're going to see 30 or 40 drones in the air on their phone. Which one is the one that's actually there? How will they know? They won't know. So that's the easiest way. It defeats the whole purpose of remote ID, and it's not illegal. I think that's what we should be doing. Ricky B says, go live more often, Bruce. Oh, yeah, I will. I've got to get a better computer. This is a crappy old i5 with no graphics card in it that I'm running on at the moment. So, and I don't have a Stream Deck or anything else, any of the fancy crap. So when funds allow, a bit short at the moment, but when funds allow, I'll probably set up a streaming setup, but it costs a lot of money to set yourself up properly with that. And at the moment, all my money is going into fighting for the hobby, because of the amount of time I spend on doing stuff behind the scenes. And you'll see that with the videos I'm going to be rolling out. I've got to do a safety video for Christmas. A lot of people are going to be getting a drone for Christmas. The last thing we want is to lose our impeccable record of safety. So I'm doing some safety videos, not focusing on rules, focusing on common sense. How do you identify the risks? How do you manage those risks? And when is it safe? When is it not safe? Use your common sense and try and get people into that safety culture rather than just blindly relying on rules which are a bad fit for the job. So what else we got here? Oh, thank you. Stream and audio looks good. Nice to know. Yeah, I'll try and do a regular stream. Problem is the stream space is pretty full. I mean, at the moment, I think Ken Heron's on the other channel doing his stuff. And if you look around, there's a lot of streams. So there's not many slots left in time to run a stream without stepping on someone's toes. So I'll think long and hard about when and what times I do a stream. And as when I get the gear, I'll do it properly, because there's a lot of stuff I'd like to do, like Ian at Mads Tech does. He's got all the gear, he's got all the cameras, he's got the switching thing. That's great. But I just have a crappy old computer with a microphone that doesn't work sometimes. So we'll see. And Tool 1023 says you can spoof your GPS location on your phone. And that'll be interesting, because I don't know. Yeah, you can do that, but you're probably not going to. You'll be able to hide your location. That's probably it. Hide the location where you are. But because you've got to fly within visual line of sight, if they can see the drone, they can see you. I mean, that's the whole. This is the ridiculous thing. The FAA has said, remote ID will enable beyond visual line of sight. But you still can't fly beyond visual line of sight. It'll enable beyond visual line of sight for the corporations with the money to get the waivers, but it's not going to provide us with a general across the board right to fly beyond visual line of sight. It's not going to do that, because it's not in their interests to allow that. Although it may, thank you, Mike, it may encourage more BVLOS flight. Because if you are flying, you don't want to be, if you're flying your drone somewhere, you're better to take off a long way away and then fly it to where you want to fly, because if someone uses their little app and they see, oh, he's there, if you're 2 miles away, by the time they get to you, you've flown the drone back, packed up and gone. So it's encouraging illegal BV loss operation. What is it, Mike? We are not worthy. Oh, I think you are. I think you're all worthy. Where would I be without my audience? You are not safe, Bruce, without rules. You have chaos. That's right. I'm not saying no rules. I'm saying there's only 2 rules. Don't endanger other people. Don't endanger other people's properties. Those are the only rules that you need. Those are the rules that protect everybody. There are no loopholes in that rule. For example, if you're flying and you hurt someone, you've broken the rule. Don't endanger other people. If you're flying and you hurt someone's property, you fly into their car and break a window or something, you've broken a rule. You've endangered other people's property. It's really simple, cut and dry. There's no excuses. There's no outs. If you hurt someone or you hurt their property, you've broken the rules and you are responsible. Simple as that. But it puts the burden of making decisions back on the person, as is the case at the moment, because let's face it, people who are going to do bad things, they're going to laugh at regulations. Doesn't matter what rules you make, they're going to ignore them. So as I said, all you do when you make rules is control the actions of people who aren't a problem, the people who are already responsible. They're the rule followers, but you don't need to regulate them because they are already doing things safely. The rogue element, the bad actors, they'll laugh in your face no matter what your rules are. So, Okay, yes, the FAA has provided no proof. They've come up with a lot of hyperbole and bullshit, but no proof. That's dead right. In fact, the American system's crazy. Why do you need a 107 just because you put your videos on YouTube? This makes no sense. In New Zealand, we have one good thing going for us, is that there's no distinction between commercial and non-commercial use of a drone or a model, because there's no different to the risk profile. If I fly my drone and do some wonderful aerial video and then just leave the SD card on my table, then the risk for that operation has already been established. If it was a recreational flight, already established. If I do the same flight and I put the video up on YouTube and get monetized the video, hasn't made it more dangerous. And to suggest that is absolutely stupid, which is what the FAA is suggesting. And the other thing, Kevin did that, a stream the other day with some guy, they're talking about remote ID, and the subject of shielded operations came up. And Kevin said, yes, we're going to do shielded operations, but you won't be able to fly your drone in your own backyard and claim that as a shielded operation because your drone could go out of control, fly up into the sky and hit a helicopter sort of thing. And I thought, oh, God, really? Seriously? Long bows they draw when they're trying to justify stupidity, because here in New Zealand, we have shielded operations. We've had them for 7 years. I can fly a drone in my backyard, even though I'm within the prescribed area from a helipad, because I've got trees, I've got a fence, I've got my house. They all shield my operation from, there's not going to be any helicopters or manned aircraft in my backyard. So I can fly my drone there, no problems at all. The problem that Kevin has is that this drone could fly away. Well, in the 7 years that shielded operations have been a thing in New Zealand, there has not been one instance where a drone flown in a shielded operation has endangered a manned aircraft. So the FAA should be looking at the evidence, at the facts, at the history that proves shielded operations can be conducted in your own backyard. But they're saying, no, you won't be able to do them in your backyard. Too dangerous. Regulators do not look at the facts. They do not look at the evidence. They refuse to learn from other regulators. They all want to be the one that invents the wheel. We can't have that. It's too much of a burden on the hobby. What have we got now? Excuse me while I read this stuff. I'm too reasonable. That's the problem. That's why I don't get on with bureaucrats. People may have noticed, and some people say, you're just anti-authority. No, I'm not. I'm anti-stupidity. And the problem is that bureaucrats, they're a breed. They really are a breed. Now, I don't know whether I should upload this video, but people who regularly watch my videos know I've had a problem with the local council. I wanted to video their meetings, and they said, you can't do that. No, we're not going to let you video our meetings. Now, in New Zealand, we have the freedom. Wow, Brett, thank you so much, mate. That's brilliant. Yeah, I hope you do call in too. Yep, certainly do, and we'll make sure you're taken care of. No worries. Yeah, I've forgotten what I was saying now. Getting old is terrible, I tell you. But my Parkinson's been pretty good recently. I'm trying to keep that under control, but I've just lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Someone remind me. This is terrible. Oh no, mid-rant and I ran out of steam. Who knows? Common sense. Yeah, that's right. Okay, yeah, the council, they wouldn't let me film. But in New Zealand, we have a right under our Bill of Rights, which is kind of like a constitution, but really watered down, which says that we're allowed to do that. Now, I went to the council, they told me to stop, and I couldn't be bothered having a fight at the late day. I wanted to check all my facts and figures, so I stopped filming. I went back this week, and I advised them I was going to come and film a meeting. And the chief executive of the council said, you don't have permission. We're not going to let you. Permission is denied. And I said in a reply email, it's not a debate. I'm coming. So I rolled up. I was expecting to be trespassed or to have the police there, but I rolled up. I asserted my rights, and they had no option but to let me video the meeting. So now the precedent's been set. They can't. They know. I know. Everybody knows I can do it. So if I hadn't exercised my rights, then nobody else would have done it because they were afraid they'd be locked up. But someone's got to do it. You've got to exercise these freedoms and rights, or they just disappear. They drift away. And that's the problem the hobby's having at the moment. People are just capitulating to regulation and letting their freedoms and their rights and their privileges just drift away and be taken by, regulators and politicians and large corporations. That has to stop. Politicians make money from lobbyists, so many people just seem to believe that bureaucrats only make choices based on virtue and altruism. No, it is money rules the world. Money makes the world go round. Absolutely. And we don't have the money to play them at their game. We don't have enough money to lobby for the hobby. The lobbyists, we're talking about Google, Amazon, Airbus, Boeing. They've got all the money in the world. They're richer than God. So we can't possibly play their game. We need to come from a different perspective. And that's why I think it is going to be, the more I think about it, the better it's going to be to totally disrupt remote ID by having apps on our phones and devices we can put around, which just flood the air with bogus remote ID signals. Completely destroys the validity of remote ID. That's what we should do. Everyone's got a smartphone, encourage your friends to put it on their smartphones. And when you go out flying, have your smartphone broadcasting 30 or 40 bogus remote ID signals. And if a policeman comes along with his phone and tries to see what's going on, he's buggered. He can't do anything. He won't know what's what. And that's I think that is our way forward on this. But there are other bigger issues, of course, like the other regulations that are restricting what we can do. Those all need a different tack. And I'm working on that now, as I say, education of regulators, because in some places, regulators aren't too bad. Now, as I said, the Department for Homeland Defense, I think it was, they pushed the remote ID thing. They forced it on the FAA. So it's not really the FAA's fault. They were directed, they had to do that. And in New Zealand, we've got our Ministry of Transport forcing CAA to introduce registration. Because the CAA here has said registration would serve no purpose. So the government said, well, okay, we'll give the job of regulating to someone else who will do what we want them to do. So we've got to realize it's not always the regulator at fault. But to my mind, if you work for a regulator and you can see what you're doing is unjust, then you should stand up. You put your principles and your ethics ahead of your pay packet. I mean, not everyone can afford to do that, but I'm principled. I would just say, look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be dishonest in the way that you're asking me to be with the people that I'm regulating. And that's what I do. There's always other jobs. In fact, interestingly enough, while I'm on that topic, in the Ministry of Transport, people there have been convinced that registration is not a good thing either. So the number of people that have been rotated through the positions involved is quite high. As soon as someone is convinced that we don't need registration, they get moved out and someone else gets put in that job to try and make sure the registration goes through. It is such a messy business. Bureaucrats, my goodness. I would never want to be a bureaucrat. What have we got now? Yep, maybe they want to keep their jobs. Yeah, they do want to keep their jobs. But I mean, I prefer to sleep straight. Good morning, Captain Calgary. And what's Jason say? DHS is just knee-jerking. I could deal far more damage with nothing but a fully stocked car than I could with a UAV. Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Brilliant, mate. Yeah, this is right. This is, and another thing that annoys me from the regulators is they say, yeah, people can build and fly ultralights under the 103 rule without registration, without certification, without training, without remote ID. They can do that because they've got skin in the game, and that makes it safe, which is absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. You know, the terrorists that attacked on 9/11, they had skin in the game. Didn't stop them. All the suicide bombers that have done terrorist acts, they've all got skin in the game. Didn't matter. People are going to do bad things. They will do bad things. And then if you look at it, they say, oh, no, but it'll stop people making bad decisions. And I look at all the manned aviation incidents where people have died because they've made bad decisions, despite the fact they've got skin in the game. All those avoidable crashes caused by people making the wrong choice because it was convenient or whatever. Skin in the game does not help. It is just a sop. It's a total sop. And they can't think up a real reason as to why 103 gets all those freedoms and the much safer drone hobby gets none. G'day, Shawnee, hero of the hobby. I don't know. Don't know about that. Don't know about that. Yeah. So how long have we been going on this stream? Geez, 50 minutes. That's quite a long time. So yeah, I just wanted to bring this out. Now I will be doing a follow-up because we need to find out, probably maybe leave it till after the 16th. So we'll know then whether DJI are going to really enforce the need to have that phone plugged in. At the moment, they don't have to, but if they allow you to fly without the phone plugged in after the 16th, they will be in breach of part 5 of the final remote ID rule. I'll just read that again. The FAA requires that UAS with remote identification be designed and produced in a way that reduces the ability of a person to tamper with the remote identification functionality. So if you can just unplug your phone and still fly, they've violated Section 5, and they would be subject to fines and penalties. So I think if they allow it now, they almost certainly won't allow it after the 16th. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think DJI already have enough troubles with the US government that you're not allowed. Government-funded agencies are not allowed to buy DJI drones. I don't think DJI drones are allowed to be flown over government land, stuff like that, because they're worried it's going to be sending all this data back to China. The paranoia seems to be, we had the war against drugs, the war against terror, and now we've got the war against disinformation, but it's all mainly paranoia. We spend so much money fighting wars that need not be fought, because drugs, as we've seen, now cannabis has been decriminalized in most sensible countries. Alcohol was decriminalized back in the 20s. These things, the war against terror, well, it really hasn't been much of a war. These things, the governments of the day always like to have a war against something, so they've got justification for ramming through things that in a state of peace would not be accepted by the general public. We've got to do this because of the war against whatever it is. And yeah, most people are too busy trying to make enough money to live to look closely and see what's going on, which is unfortunate. So can we organize groups worldwide? This is the problem, RC Mask Master. I've tried to organize people to get the community together in a group. Look at a good example is the FPV Freedom Coalition in America. Now they were started with great intent, and it looked like they were going to be really, really powerful and big, and they've got some connections with the FAA. But in the whole of America, this is the whole of the USA, how many people would fly FPV? There must be thousands and thousands of people fly FPV. Yet when the FPV Freedom Coalition have one of their town hall meetings on Discord, you get about 4 or 5 people, maybe 6 or 7 on a good day turn up out of all those people, because most people, they're just too busy. They don't care. They want someone else to do the work for them. Yeah, you take care of looking after the hobby for me. I'm just too busy having fun. That's the problem we've got. People are not taking responsibility. And that's why I'm hoping this situation with the Avata might wake up a whole lot of people who suddenly realize, oh man, I can't fly my drone without having my phone plugged in. And wow, when I do that, the moment I plug that phone in, all the Karens know where I am. That may be the factor that gets people into action to take action against this ridiculous regulatory overreach and the introduction of things that serve no purpose at all, despite the lies and deceptions that have been fed to us by the regulators. Yes, the DJI app does send a ton of data back to DJI, but it doesn't send videos. It doesn't stream videos back to China or whatever. And so, yeah, I don't know. And what about all our Chinese phones? How many people have got phones with components made in China? All the iPhones are made in China. So how do you know that the iPhones aren't sending data back all the time? If drones can do it, why wouldn't the iPhone do it? All these things. Most electronic equipment these days is made in China. So everything that's made in China potentially is a security threat. Why pick only on drones? Oh, yes, license to drive. You did catch a live stream. How about that? Is that a good thing? I'm not so sure. The AMA has soured people on joining groups. Yeah, I think, well, that's one group. Don't judge all groups by the AMA. I think the AMA is looking out. In fact, I'm glad they admitted the AMA is there to protect the interests of its members, not the hobby, not the hobby. The hobby is much bigger than the AMA. So the AMA is looking after a little tiny subset of its members and its employees. So they get paid good money for working for the AMA. So the employees will want you to join the AMA because it's more money in the kitty. It may not be a for-profit operation, but the money still gets paid to people. What have we got? And also the thing with the AMA, they've always been so ineffective. I've mentioned this before. They think, I don't believe how naive the AMA and other people like this can be. Even I put the FPV Freedom Coalition in here as well. These groups believe that they can cozy up to the FAA, cozy up, get a relationship going, and have some leverage. It's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. I've dealt with bureaucrats for many, many years. They will tell you exactly what they think you want to hear. They'll tell you whatever they need to tell you to make you think that you're getting somewhere. And they'll just do whatever they want to do. They've got no obligation to listen to you. They've got no obligation to act on anything you say. And they'll just do what they want to do. They'll do what their bosses tell them. They'll do what their political overlords tell them. The fact that you think you're getting somewhere means shame on you. You're being fooled. And that's proven to be the case with the AMA and with FPV Freedom Coalition. The FPV Freedom Coalition hasn't even been appointed a CBO. It hasn't got CBO status. They thought they'd walk in and get CBO status. But here's something. Now, this is going on a bit long, but I want to say this as well. Now, under the rules, to fly with an exception to having to have a Part 107, you must fly in accordance with the safety programming of a recognized CBO. That's the rule. That's what FAA says. Now, there's only one at the moment. It's the AMA. But everyone says, oh, no, Flight Test will get it and FPV Freedom Coalition will get it. But there's no guarantees they will, because this brings up a huge problem for the FAA. Now, the FPV Freedom Coalition, they're not interested in writing safety guidelines for people that fly control line or scale P-51 Mustangs or discus launch gliders off hills or whatever. They're only interested in writing safety guidelines and programming for people that fly FPV. So let's say you are someone who likes to fly, radio-controlled aerobatics with large fixed-wing models, right? But you don't want to have to deal with all the hassles of these CBO things, all these safety programming. So when you fly, you can fly under the FPV Freedom Coalition's safety guidelines. They've got nothing to say about fixed-wing line-of-sight aerobatic flying, so there's no restrictions on you. They only deal with FPV. They have safety programming for FPV operations. So the FAA is unlikely to appoint any CBO that doesn't have a totally comprehensive set of safety guidelines covering all model disciplines, because it leaves a loophole where people flying those disciplines can choose a CBO that has no safety programming for their type of operation. FAA, thick as two planks on that one. So that means I don't think that the FPV Freedom Coalition will get CBO status until they change their safety programming guidelines to cover all aspects of model flying. Because if they don't, people will just choose them and not have to worry. And the same goes with Flight Test. Flight Test probably don't have safety programming guidelines for people flying turbine models, because you don't fly foam board turbine models very often. So turbine flyers might think, well, we'll just choose Flight Test as our CBO safety programming. We don't have to worry about all that stuff. This is the problem when you have so many rules, you create so many loopholes. The more complex your rule set, the more holes it has. And the FAA has gone so complex, they're creating every rule creates a new hole. And this whole thing is just going to get so out of hand. So I don't think we'll see another CBO for quite some time. That strengthens the AMA's position as the CBO. Unfortunate, but we'll wait and see. I may be wrong. Yes, drones, Toronto, it is sad for the hobby, but we brought it on ourselves. We really have. What else have we got? Grid is already implemented. It's not just reached the activation date or it's been delayed. Yeah, the first phase was supposed to be implemented as of September this year. It was put off until December. It's now just 8 days away. And then the final bit comes in September 2023. And that'll be the next thing when, doesn't matter what you fly, unless you're flying at a freer, you're going to have remote ID on that model of that drone. And people say, oh, but sub 250. No. If you're flying sub 250 for commercial purposes, you still need remote ID. So if I was going to fly this in America to make YouTube videos, I'd have to have remote ID on it. How the hell would you put remote ID on that? But if you're flying under 107, it would have to have remote ID. It means no more commercial flights of tiny whoops outdoors. If you want to go down the park and fly, nope, can't do it. Unbelievable. We don't hear of these rules in Canada. No, Captain Calgary, you don't. And remind me, in Canada, do you still have to keep a log detailing the maintenance and repairs you've done to your drones? Wasn't that part of the rule set that they rolled out for drone operators in Canada? I don't think anybody does it, do they? They don't do it. And no one even bothers checking on that. So again, non-compliance is always an option. Mini bikes are a lot more dangerous than RC planes. Yeah, of course they are. People die on mini bikes. And those three-wheel little trikes that were popular, a lot of people died on those. And this is the thing with drones. Now, if you buy yourself a race car, that'll do 200 miles an hour, okay, you can't drive at that speed on the roads, but you can drive it on your own property at that speed if you've got the track or something. And there's a lot of things out there, hobbies and recreational activities, where you can do stuff on your own property and you don't have to worry about the rules and regulations because it's your own property. It doesn't apply to us. Drones have no private property. As soon as you lift off the ground, you're in the national airspace and the regulations come in. So even if you live 100 miles from anywhere and you've got full control over the land you're flying in, and even if you're flying right alongside a row of trees, sorry, you're still just as bound by the rules as somebody who's flying in central New York. There's no latitude given for any of that stuff. We don't have any escape areas. There's nowhere we can go apart from these freers, but they're going to be AMA sanctioned. So you're going to have little men with clipboards and safety officers telling you can't stand there and your shirt's not buttoned up. It's not going to work. And to this end, if Bot Grinder gets his FPV park going, which I certainly hope he does, I certainly hope that he makes it a rule-free zone. Makes it no. FAA, keep out of here. We're not interested. We're doing our own thing. We're not a threat to anybody. So there's no place for you in our park. Hopefully that's what will happen. But I don't know. That's up to Bot Grinder. That's what I certainly would do. In fact, I would really like to set up a model flying park here in New Zealand. I would like to set up a park on private property, away from airports, in an area where there was no regular air traffic. And I would just say to the Civil Aviation Authority here, why don't you just put an exclusion zone around this little area? Because there may be drones operating there and maybe model aircraft, and it may not be safe for manned aviation to come around this area. And there you go. I'm telling you, it's up to you to make that decision. If you choose not to and someone gets hurt, you have not mitigated a risk. But that would get me in trouble. But I'd do it anyway. You've got to be in trouble. Life's no fun if you're not in trouble. What is it? Excuse me. Spectrum is reliable, but I use Crossfire, not ELRS yet. Yeah, Spectrum is more reliable than it used to be. It used to be really bad. Not so bad now. Still not the best, but not so bad. And Yowie P51, great live. Bruce, after rejoining the club, seen they have no interest, live in their own little world. Yeah, a lot of clubs are like that. It's the problem. They're very insular. They're very introspective, and it really disappoints me. I see no real action by most clubs to recruit new members. A while back in New Zealand here, I wanted to get all the clubs involved in having a national open day, a national model flying open day where we could run stuff in the papers and people could come in all around the country. People could find their local club and go and visit and have a look at the models and perhaps get interested in the hobby. The response I got was really tepid. A lot of the clubs said, well, we've got more members than we can cope with anyway, so we're not interested in having new members. Our field is full to capacity. Really? We've got to keep... Oh, look. The spammers are here. I love these people. How do I make that happen? Let's just see what I can do. I should point some... remove. I'll just hide them. There we go. I should appoint some moderators, shouldn't I? Who wants to be a moderator? Anyone want to be a moderator? Any regulars? I have someone as a moderator, but I can't remember who it was. They may not be here. So me, Doyle, hang on, just keep scrolling. This is very difficult to do when it's all scrolling up. Add a moderator. There you go, mate. The responsibility is yours. I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. It's now 3:20 in the afternoon here in New Zealand. And you guys probably should all be at home in bed, shouldn't you? I'm sorry about that. But there you go. I'm running out of voice now. So I better call it quits for this stream. Should find the mute button. So I hope we've all been enlightened and enthused to do something about the problems we're facing. I'm going to do some more strategizing. We need to be strategic in our outlook. As I say, if no one's going to develop that phone app, I've just been tidying up the loose ends on the ADSB alarm phone app. So I'm in a phone app writing mood. Maybe I'll write that app that spoofs the remote ID system. But one of the things, this really annoys me, the standard under the FAA has accepted for remote ID, you can't get your hands on it unless you pay hundreds of dollars. It's not an open standard. It's one produced by the is it the IEEE? I forget who it is. One of the standards authorities have produced it, and you're going to pay money to get it. It's ridiculous. I mean, surely if it's something that's mandated on all drones, then the standard itself should be freely available. The FAA should have purchased a right to republish the standard so everyone can see what it is, but they don't do it. Probably because they didn't want people like me writing apps that would destroy the functionality of the remote ID system. Well, I'm sure we can get our hands on that somewhere. There's bound to be some kindred spirit who will slip a copy of that standard to me, or whoever else might want to write such an app. And thank you, Sawney. Yep, I do my best. Yep, Alex, you're right. Anyone can create a standard, but it has to be accepted by the FAA. And that process, I don't know what's involved in that. I shouldn't think it would be a simple thing to do. And also, it's easier to use the existing standard because all the apps that are currently written will be based on that standard because it's the only accepted standard for compliance. So I'll just try and get a copy of that standard, write an app that will send out 30 or 40 spoof drone reports while you're using it. So when you fly, start the app, and then when you're finished, turn the app off, done. No one will know which of those 40 drones you actually are, and include the coordinates of people all over the place. So they won't know where to go because you could be one of 40 virtual people flying that drone. Thank you, LJ Smith Flying. That is really appreciated. The funds I'm getting at the moment, excuse me, are all going into the war chest to continue this little fight for the hobby. If we don't save the hobby, no one else is going to do it for us. We've really got to stand up and take this fight to the public and to the regulators and to the politicians. And I have had enough battles with bureaucrats and politicians to know some of the best strategies. I've learned a lot, had a lot of failures, learned from every one of them. And I've had more successes than failures recently. Okay, the tower came down, but that was a very small battle. It was low on my importance list. I've had far bigger battles to fight. So we will, and I did win a battle with the council over the filming of their meetings. So I've learned from all of them, and hopefully we can bring that knowledge to good use when we try and save the hobby from those that want to take it from us for 30 pieces of silver. Right, now, I've got to work out how to turn this damn thing off. Where's this? How's it? Live? No, I've no idea how to stop the stream. Oh, no. Oh, here it is. There's a big red button that says end stream. That's probably the one, isn't it? Yeah, there you go. Anyway, you can go and put comments. I'll leave the stream up. You'll probably find it, but I don't know. There's a separate section for live streams. But if you want to comment on the video I put up today, you can do that. And there will be a lot more videos coming on this subject. But hey, there's also some more fun videos. I've got some more footage from the flying field last weekend when we were flying. So enjoy that. Also put a review up on my RC Model Reviews of the Foxeer Aura 7, which I kind of like. You can go and watch that if you want to. 6 minutes on a 1300mm pack and 16 minutes on a 3000 milliamp pack. And I'm going to do a video showing you how to make your own lithium-ion batteries for long-range FPV operation. Yeah, trying to keep you informed, entertained, and protected. That's what I do. And I appreciate everybody that supports me, especially those who've made super chats on the stream. They are incredibly valuable, and I thank every one of you for every cent you've donated. Much appreciated. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If I can work out what to do, I'll say bye for now. Here we go. What does it say? End. Are you sure? Are you certain? Absolutely. Last chance to back out. Here we go.